So everyone, this is first lightning talk. Hopefully nobody gets electrocuted. I can promise that I'm not going to be doing any electrocuting. My name's Sutton. I work for Google. They don't brand everyone. This is a t-shirt I've been asked to wear. This is by choice. And I work on a team that specializes in doing Android backup and restore. So we do everything from changes to the OS through to when you move your data from an old phone to a new phone, the app that does that, and the app that does moving data from iOS to Android devices. So a lot of users trust us to bring their data across. So just as a quick test, how many people here have got an app that they've published in the App Store? Okay, keep your hand up if you haven't disabled backup in your manifest. Okay? Keep your hand up if you don't think your app is being backed up. Okay, those people who've still got their hands up, I've got a surprise for you. Backup is on by default, so unless you're disabling it, we will try and back your data up to help users get their new devices and restore themselves to a state where they have exactly what they expect on their device, which is what they had on their old device. So you may be wondering why we spend time and effort doing this. So in the first 4 months, there were more than 250 million Android devices sold. Give you an idea of how big that is. Try and imagine every single person living in London. I'm talking about children as well. And imagine them buying a new phone every 4 days. That would be what's needed to get to 250 million phones in a 4-month period. So if you think about that, we have over 2.5 billion activated Android devices. If we're adding more than 250 million a month, why are we not crossing 3 billion, 4 billion, 5 billion in the matter of years? The reason is there are a lot of users who get replacement devices. Phones don't last forever. It's a fact of the physical world. Things wear out. So a lot of people these days are replacing their devices. And when they replace them, they have an opportunity to reinstall all the old apps and all the old data they had, or set up from fresh. So for those who reinstall the stuff they had before using Android's backup service, and that's well over 50% of people, you have an opportunity to give them a really smooth experience to move to their new device, to keep using your app, to keep things in a way that they understand. And this does involve you, so please, I hope you'll take away from this some ideas of things you can do to make things easier on your users. So the first question that usually comes up is data privacy. So with backups, what we have is a thing called the Cloud Key Vault. Now, there is a whole white paper on this. It's fantastic if you want to get into white papers. What it does in a nutshell is your PIN, password, whatever you're using as your primary lock system, does not leave your device. There is some data stored on Google servers, which is not enough to create the encryption key that's used to encrypt your backups. So the Cloud Key Vault has measures in it to stop brute force attacks and combine it on device with your lock data to form an encryption key that secures your data. That means that Google don't have access to it. We can't create the key because we don't know your PIN, pattern, password, whatever. So this is, if you want to look at it, this is a really interesting white paper, but this is the basis of what we use to secure users' data. There is also a thing called the Android security model. Hands up those people who know what the Android security model is. Kind of what I thought. Until I joined Google, I wasn't too sure about what it was either. What it is, yes, you've guessed it, another white paper. But don't worry, I'm going to go into this one in a little bit of detail so you understand a bit more about how we design apps on Android today. Now, this is not something that was always true. You're going to find historical times when things weren't 100% by this model, but this is where we want to be. This is where we're going to be in the future. And if we find things that don't fit in with this pattern today, we're going to be looking very hard at how we can bring them in line with it. So what is the Android platform security model? It has 3 components to it, 3 players, the user, the apps, and the platform. So the user needs to have backup turned on. If they haven't got backup turned on, they're not going to get backups. That's, we think, a reasonably okay assumption to make that users will understand that. They need to be able to handle backups. So your apps need to be able to handle backups. If you've done allow backups equals false, we're going to say, okay, this is not an app we can back up. There is no value in this. And if you're doing things like you have personal data that you do not want sent to Google's servers, or if you have auth tokens that you do not want to share with other devices, turning off allow backups is a perfectly valid thing to do. There are a large number of apps that do cloud syncing. There is no point backing up data that you're also syncing with the cloud. So we don't expect every app to be in a state where we can back it up. We would rather, to be honest with you, if you have no data to back up, that you say you can't be backed up. It saves us storing a lot of data, and it also saves the problem where, because a backup happens at a point in time, if a user does some other things and you've synced those to your cloud storage systems, like Firebase, for example, when they get their new device, their restore will come from an older point in time, and then the sync will happen. So it can create a jarring experience. So if you're doing cloud syncing, have a think about whether or not you actually need to do backups as well. And auth tokens are a very special case. We would love you to transfer auth tokens. Users would love to be logged in when they get their new phone and they've got the data restored. But that, again, is a decision you as an app developer make. You can create an includes and excludes file that excludes specific things, or you can just say, do not back me up, and that will protect your auth token. And the final player is the platform. We need to ensure that the data can be backed up. If there's a problem with the user's account and we don't know who to associate it with, if they're going over quota, if they're doing lots of other things, we will not back the data up, even if the user wants a backup and the app says it can be backed up. So the user can turn off the setting. You can exclude it via your backup agent if you actually want to get into writing code, via the configuration file, which allows you to include and exclude specific things, or via the manifest if you just want to say, don't back me up. I've got my own solution. Don't worry about it. And the platform has a quota. So you have 25 megabytes per user per app on a phone. If you have more than 25 megabytes that you're trying to back up, you're not going to get anything. So again, if you look at your app and you're finding, I'm over this 25 meg limit, don't back up. You're not going to get any advantage from it. All you're going to do is going to cause some thrashing in your app where you're backing up stuff that is never going to go to the servers to be restored. So there are 3 responsibilities, one on each party. The user has to buy in. The developer has to buy in. The platform has to buy in. Most of the time, these 3 things will all happen. In the situations where you don't realize that you get backed up by default, then it'll happen. But you have this opportunity to say, don't do it. And that is something that we're not going to come to you and say, hey, you're not backing up your data. Would you mind backing up your data? If you've got a better way of doing things, if you're using Cloud Sync, if you've got data that is specific to a device and shouldn't move across, if you've got all those kind of things, it is absolutely your choice. So Android Auto Backup is what we currently recommend you use. It will back up your shared preferences, your app's internal storage, your database path, and your external files directory. This is when I'd say, we're backing up your app by default. These are the things that get backed up. Excluded are your cache.dir, your code cache directory, and your no backup files directory. We like to make things obvious. We hoped that would send a hint. So those are not backed up by default. So if you're downloading a set of assets that you don't want to store permanently, put them in your cache directory. If you're downloading some stuff that's really sensitive, put it in your no backup files directory. You can still benefit from everything else getting backed up, but those things will be excluded. So it's configurable. There's a web page. No white paper on this, unfortunately, for those of you who are loving the idea of white papers. What we've given you is a specific XML format that you can say, within the areas that are backed up by default, I want you to include or exclude these things. It gives you even more granular control. If you craft this correctly, you can actually say, within a directory, I only want these many files backed up, and these are left on the device and not taken across to a new device. We really want you to have that level of detail. We really want to give you the control of what backs up. We have absolutely no interest in backing up data where someone's going to say to us, hey, you've got a copy of my photos, and I didn't want you to. If you tell us it can be backed up, we will try and back it up. So does this do everything we want? Does it give us every single use case we can imagine? Does it make everybody happy? No. It probably doesn't surprise you. You're probably thinking of some cases where you might want to do something slightly different and all that kind of thing. So you might be wondering, why has Google said come and talk? Well, that was what my manager told me. We want to start a discussion with developers. When I said to him there are 2 conferences a year that are very big conferences in Europe, we can go out and reach out to developers and make them aware of what we're doing, that was his response. So we've come here today, and we're out at the booth that's out on the main floor, to basically say, talk to us. We have a history of key value backup, which if you're using that, please think about moving off of it. We know people who were trying to squeeze SQLite into key values so they could back them up. Yes, that is as painful as it sounds, which is why we gave you auto backup, which is the automatically on thing that backs up the areas that you specify only if you tell us to. And in the future, who knows what we want? At the moment, we think that most people are going towards Cloud Sync. But if there's something else you want, if you want to sync to your local NAS, or you want to sync to something else, those are ideas we'd love to know. We're creating this solution to serve apps and serve users. You are the developers of those apps. You're the users of those phones. Talk to us. Tell us what you want. We want to know your ideas. And with that, I am going to hand it over to Joshua, who's going to talk to you about the future of navigation. I'll be out at our booth tomorrow. If you want to have a chat about anything, if you want to bring me your ideas, I look forward to hearing you. Thanks very much.